The JRPG genre is one that I'm pretty sure I've made clear is a genre that I love wholeheartedly. The stories they tell, the characters they develop, the worlds they create, there's something really magical about them. However, there is a sub-series of JRPGs that take all of these elements, but change up the gameplay from a regular turn-based combat system and action RPG styles that the genre is known for. This is the tactical JRPG. It takes the same elements of a normal JRPG, but makes battles a lot more strategic and intense with giant battle boards and field elements that can either help or go against you. Ogre Battle and Final Fantasy Tactics were some of the first games North America got to see take this style of gameplay and completely change up the norm. Especially Final Fantasy Tactics, as it was such a dramatic change from the prior release of the critically acclaimed Final Fantasy VII. And as much as I love that game, my true love for the genre wouldn't really grow until one day, a special game released on the Game Boy Advance was released. Portable consoles are almost the foundation for the perfect system to put a tactics game on. You can take it anywhere you go, and most have the option to suspend gameplay so you can take a break and go back to it later. The game we're actually going to be looking at today is one that is held in regards as one of the best in the series and just did everything better than its predecessor ever did. And it's a game that I wholeheartedly love with just every ounce of my body. That's right, today we're going to be taking a look at
Did somebody say Fire Emblem?
No, Fantasy Tactics Advanced. Yeah.
Wait, you're not talking about Fire Emblem? The hit strategy RPG series that was released for the first time on North American shores November 3rd of 2003?
Why are you being so specific about this?
I just really like Fire Emblem. Okay?
Well, that's all fine and dandy, Chris, but I don't plan on reviewing Fire Emblem today. No. 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 Goddamn, fine, okay, yeah, fine, I'll do it. I'll talk about it. Three Houses comes out today. Why the hell not? Let's look at a game that's most famous for having a girl named Lynn in it. Let's take a look at Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance. There, Chris. That making you happy?
Oh, sorry, what was that? I was, too busy playing Fire Emblem Three Houses on the Nintendo Switch.
You are the bane of my existence, dude. Don't judge. Fire Emblem is such a unique game when I really sit down and think about it. Not in style or in gameplay wise, but in how we actually got this game to come out in North America. And it's all thanks to this man right here, Masahiro Sakurai. See, it turns out Sakurai adding Fire Emblem characters to his Smash Bros. Games isn't just a new thing he's been doing, as he originally intended for the Hero King Mart to be in the original Smash Bros. Of course we know this because instead it was shifted to Melee, where both him and Roy were released. Then Melee came to us here in the West, and we all said the same thing. Who the hell are these anime pretty boys? But nonetheless, people started to become really attached to these characters. Then fans learned that they were part of a series called Fire Emblem, and everyone kind of went, oh yeah, I remember that one movie we got back in the 90s. I'm just kidding. No one said that. We never got Fire Emblem over here. While it was a long-running series dating back to the Famicom, or the Japanese NES, Fire Emblem was a series that never saw the light of day here in North America until a little game on the Game Boy Advance came out called Advance Wars, and oh boy did it do well. That's when Nintendo gave us the thumbs up to finally get a hold of this series called Fire Emblem, and we did it with the 7th entry. In Japan it was known as, I'm probably gonna butcher this, Fire Emblem Rekka no Ken, but for us it was simply called Fire Emblem. While I had played this game before, I can't really remember if I've ever beaten it. I played this a long time ago, and I never really got into the series until Fire Emblem Awakening, but I always hear about how this is still one of the best in the franchise, and to this day, many people still call it the best one. So let's see if I can find out why. Our game opens up with us creating our character, or rather just, you know, our name and birth date. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, in case you couldn't tell, this is just a way for the game to convey a reason as to why there's a tactical element in the game. Your character is a tactician, with the role of guiding your fellow warriors in battle. And that's about it. There's no option to select when speaking to characters, and it's all very primitive, but hey, that's okay, because Lynn tells me she's happy to have me by her side, and that alone makes it worthwhile. Speaking of, our adventure starts with us awakening to a girl living in a village by the name of Lynn, a lone survivor of a massive raid on her village by some bandits known as the Black Fang. After defeating a few that threaten her life, she decides that she needs to train herself better so that she one day may be able to take revenge on her parents' death. As she leaves for the neighboring town, she meets two soldiers, Sane and Kent, who are looking for a woman fitting Lynn's mother's description. See, it turns out that Lynn is actually a relative of the Lord of Kalin, which is a neighboring country, or town. I don't know, this game gets really weird with locations. Anyway, said lord is now falling ill, so these fine knights were sent on a journey to find his last relative so that she may take the head of the land. When Lynn not only tells them that the woman they are looking for is not only her mother, but also no longer with them, they realize that Lynn is actually the last remaining relative of the family. They request that she go meet her grandfather before his time is up, though at first she's not too sure with herself. She decides that the best place to head is there, as she would love to see a member of her family again. Of course, this is Fire Emblem, which means only one thing: political drama! TLDR, the Lord of Kalin's brother is actually a bad guy because, I mean, look at him. He's poisoning his brother so that he can take the role of the leader of the land. However, knowing of Lynn's existence, that leaves kind of a big hole in his plan. So now Lynn leads her band of warriors, including those you will meet along the way, to rush to Lynn's homeland to oppose the evil brother and save her grandfather. Which they do. Look, in all honesty, Lynn's story is basically your tutorial chapters, where the game uses the stories and characters as a way to teach you how the game's gonna work. There is another main character to the story. You even meet him during Lynn's chapters. This man goes by the name of Eliwood, or as some people like to call him, Not Roy. Eliwood's tale is simple. His father is missing, and he's on a journey to find him. Oof, a main character in Fire Emblem, and his dad is still alive? That's an equation that does not go well. He also meets up with his friend Hector, who is from a neighboring city of Ostia. When Hector learns that Eliwood's father has gone missing, he knew Eliwood would go looking for him. Hector asks his brother, who is the current Marquis of Ostia, if he could lend Eliwood a hand, to which he agreed, and from there on, their journey sets off. And if I'm being honest, there's quite a bit that happens in this game's plot, like maybe a bit too much. Political drama, losing loved ones, love, betrayal, reuniting with past party members from Lynn's chapters, political manipulation. It's all here, and almost every Fire Emblem game follows suit to these formulas and has done so beforehand. And this isn't to say that the story is bad, it's actually probably one of my favorite Fire Emblem stories ever told, but to talk about it all in this video would just raise the watch time to 40 minutes, and I don't think any of you want that. For now, let's leave Eliwood on his travels, for we have more important things to talk about. So this is a GBA game, and it's a damn good looking one at that. Well, kinda. I don't mean to knock this game's graphics, as this is on the Game Boy Advance, and it's a very different style of RPG. Not to mention, this game was supposed to go from the SNES to the N64, sadly that game was cancelled, and then revamped for the Game Boy Advance, or at least Fire Emblem 6 was. So naturally the graphics were a bit of a downgrade, but you know, nothing too major. Fire Emblem uses sprites for its character models, and honestly, they looked really good. And it's done in an interesting way as well. Let's use this for an example. As much as I like Awakening, even I can admit a lot of the character models and portraits they're not bland, but boring at times? Yeah, I think boring is the word I can use. Okay, no, I kind of take that back. There's no animation to the portrait. Though the portraits are beautifully drawn and give every supporting character their own features, they're not animated, yet in the Game Boy Advance version, they are. And I feel like that gives them a little bit more life to their characters. And battle animations in Awakening are, yeah, they aren't the best. The combat in Awakening seems very stiff and awkward at times, mainly because of the whole jump to 3D. At least 3DS 3D. The point I'm trying to make here is that everything I kind of sort of nitpick on Awakening is nowhere to be found in Fire Emblem Rekka no Ken or Fire Emblem 7. Character models feel more alive, and even though their portraits are only seen from the mid-chest upwards, the fact that they have speaking animations and different angles to perform their animations in gives them a little bit more of energy and features to be seen. Heck, even when they move around a little bit in their scene is just a little nice touch that really didn't need to be there. But where its style really shines is the battle sequences, and oh god, do I love these battle sequences. Every single bit of animation and strike of weapons is near perfection in my eyes. The motions are swift yet impactful, and it really gives a sense of just how much damage you're dealing to the enemy, or even how much you're receiving. And don't even get me started when a critical hit is activated, because oh lord almighty, it's so pretty and fluidly animated, and good lord, this is on the Game Boy Advance. I could look at all of these battle sequences all day, because they are truly a highlight of the game for me. But while battle screens are all pretty to look at, there is one major gameplay factor which also needs to be talked about, and that is field movement. So basically, us good dudes are on one side, and all the bad guys and gals are on the other. Each team is represented by a color, blue being the good ones, and red being the bad ones, and green for the supporting cast. It's as simple as it can get, but sometimes simplicity just works much better than trying to look as stellar as possible. So yeah, the movement around the map is pretty basic. You select your character, and bing bang boom, you move into a spot where you can land. Blue being the area you can move to, and red being the area of attacks. And let's talk about the maps for a second. I've heard a lot of people didn't actually like the size of the maps with this title, to which I say, I mean, I guess the grand scope of the earlier entries like Fire Emblem 4 had something to do with this, but in all honesty, I think this is one of the games that had the best map design in the franchise, and I believe this for two reasons. One, smaller maps is just a good choice design-wise, as the Game Boy Advance probably wouldn't be able to handle the amount of maps this game has to offer if they were too big, and since this was the first one to come here to the West, I feel like the smaller map design really helps with newcomers to the series, as they wouldn't get lost or have such a huge space to try and memorize, all while worrying about invading troops. And speaking of troops, this is where I think the game also excels at. See, small maps mean you have very little time to plan your moves before the enemy just rushes you or pins you down in a situation that makes you go, uh-oh. Even heavy, slow-moving classes can become a threat because, well, they're just that much closer to you. But this adds to the tactic part of Fire Emblem as well. With maps being so short, you have to plan your moves accordingly, or else your character will just die. But what's the big deal, I hear you ask? One word: permadeath, which means when a supporting cast member dies, that's it. They're dead, they're not coming back, and this as well adds to the tactical element of Fire Emblem, because you'll want to plan every single movement to a T. Or you could be like me and most people and restart the chapter if a character dies. Yeah, it's a pain, but hey, you let that person die, so really who's the worst one in this situation? There is of course the weapons triangle, which basically tells you which weapon is stronger than the other. Support conversations between two party members can be achieved by placing two characters next to each other, if they have an affinity for one another, but since you can't get all of them in one playthrough, this gets a big not dealing with that today from me. They are nice and give a little more info about each cast member you have, but it's a pain in the ass to try to get an A rank with whoever you can. There's also the class changes that can be attained, which make certain party members become stronger variations of their job class to make them hit harder and move faster. There is a lot to deal with in this game, things that may make newcomers a bit anxious to try out. And trust me, as a man who is well known for not being able to play a tactics game for the life of him, there's something about Fire Emblem that even though I lose a character or get a game over, or maybe something just doesn't go my way and I have to restart from the beginning, I actually don't feel too bad. See, the game gives you everything you need to give it your all. You just need to be very careful about every decision you make. Everything you decide needs to be almost 2 to 3 turns in advance, because one wrong move and whoops, your healer's dead. And honestly, that's what makes Fire Emblem so intriguing. In the same way that Super Meat Boy makes his players feel like every death is their own fault, Fire Emblem is kind of the same with me. It's all because you just made a bad call, and you just gotta kinda accept it. Or, you know, sometimes the enemy will just get a critical attack despite his crit chance being so damn low that you don't think it would ever happen, but when it does, you just can't be that mad because it was an actual thing that can happen, so yay! In all seriousness, Fire Emblem does everything good with its presentation and gameplay. I mean, it's not all perfect, and there's some stuff that'll make you want to tear your hair out, but that's what makes Fire Emblem Fire Emblem. It's all good fun with a difficulty that you may or may not enjoy. I still stand by what I said before. Within the story of Fire Emblem, a lot of things do occur, but while there is a bunch of things going on, the game feels much longer than it should. Essentially, what we learn is that a man by the name of Nargal is behind all the actions that have taken place throughout the story. Basically, he's the evil guy pulling all the strings. His main goal is one thing. He wants to bring dragons back. Honestly, I feel him. See, about 1,000 years ago, humans and dragons once lived amongst each other, and they lived in peace. However, one day, mankind just decided to be kind of a dick one day and disrupted the peace between the two species in a sudden onslaught. These dragons then waged war against the humans, but were ultimately defeated, and in defeat, they vanished from the realm. Nargal essentially found a way to bring them back by absorbing a power called quintessence? What? It's basically the equivalent of a soul. From a person of great strength, he gains power to be able to not only call forth a dragon, but to try to also control one. He also requires the assistance of a character by the name of Ninian, a person who Lyn has rescued alongside her brother, but who had vanished and been kidnapped in the year break between Lyn and Eliwood's stories. The gang arrives at Dragon's Gate to stop Nergal and his nasty plans, and though they are successful and stop Nergal for the time being, Eliwood's father doesn't make it. Sorry Eliwood, but you're a Fire Emblem main character. 'Tis the price you pay for such a title. But of course, the baddie isn't totally defeated and is still gonna try to do the same thing he just did. So Eliwood and Hector head to Ostia to warn Uther, Hector's brother, of the possible events that could occur. And since they have no real proof that the dragons will come back, they figure that telling neighboring countries and asking them to band together to basically redo that whole war thing again would actually be difficult without said proof. So Eliwood decides that he's basically taken up the role of finishing Nargal off himself. And that's basically where the end game goes. A lot of things happen, meeting new people, discovering new truths, finding out what the Fire Emblem actually is, and it all leads up to the final showdown with Nargal and eventually a motherfucking dragon. It's all good stuff. The ending plays out, most of our cast gets their own little happy ending, and yeah, that's basically Fire Emblem. Granted, I rushed a bit, but that's mainly because I didn't want to give too much away, and if I'm being honest here, Fire Emblem's story isn't the biggest feature of Fire Emblem's writing. The plot is pretty simplistic when you really think about it, but that's because that's not where the game shines the most in terms of writing, I feel. That belongs to the characters that take place within the story. This game's cast is huge, yet I feel like everyone who's integral to the plot has their own moments to shine, and their exchanges give them so much more personality and charm that it kind of makes them more relatable. There's a character for everyone in Fire Emblem, and that's something that actually stays true even to this day. Look, Fire Emblem is a good game. Heck, I'd even say it's a great game. Heck, I'd even say it's one of the best in the series. Even though its story isn't all that amazing, its characters more than make up for it. If you haven't played a Fire Emblem game before, this might be a good place to start. Sure, it can overwhelm the player in certain points, especially with all the stuff it just kind of throws at you, but it's still a really fun time. If you still got a Wii U, you can actually get it on the eShop, so that's pretty cool. You know, if you don't want to shell out for a physical copy, I can't. But yeah, that's Fire Emblem. Is good. Anyways, before I head out, I want to give a shout out to my good buddy Chris the Fields for showing up in that silly intro we did. He's actually doing a huge retrospective on the Fire Emblem series right now over on his channel. He recently just covered Radiant Dawn, and it's honestly a great time. His Path of Radiance video is also amazingly good. Go over and check them out alongside all the other Fire Emblem videos he's done, and just all of his videos in general. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. The channel is almost at 500 subscribers, which is insane. If we hit that, I actually do have a huge video planned for it, so I don't know, help a guy out. Anyway, that's all for me today. If you're wondering why this part isn't actually live action, it's because I literally just got a haircut, and the clothes I used were in the laundry, so I couldn't record, and I'm the kind of guy who really likes consistency within his live action shit. So yeah, take it easy guys, and I'll see you in the next video. What is it? I don't know. We'll figure it out.